So formally welcome you all in the last lecture of module number 3, and to continue our discussion in the last lecture we have been discussed about the measurement of the earth resistance, in other words very high resistance, or using the measure for the measurement of earth resistance. And now in this today's lecture, the last topic of our discussion is the localization of the cable fault. As I conveyed in the last lecture, the end of the last lecture, previous session, that the role of the underground cables are kept on increasing, okay, in a day by day. Whether you talk about the smart city projects or the smart grid projects, the underground cable is the integral part of this kind of practices. What are the advantage you will get if you will go through the underground cable as per the specification? Not just that you just dig a soil and then lay down your cable. That is not the underground cabling. It has a standard demarcation that how to lay the underground cable, including the size, depth, and all. If you are following that, then in this case what will happen, the biggest advantage you will get is the uh, drastically reduction in the operation and maintenance cost, particularly the maintenance cost, I would say. Okay, so because it is free from the environmental disturbance and all other scenarios, so in all such scenario your requirement of maintenance is drastically reduced. That is number one point. Okay, number two, on the other hand, the limitation is that if your cable is experiencing some kind of fault, okay, because it is underground, so it is not very easy to identify the location of the fault. So therefore, you require some special procedure, special measures to some special methods, I would say, a dedicated mathematical model to identify the exact location of the fault so that the recovery part, that means the maintenance work, can be quickly go on and you can restore the services without much loss of the time and effort. Okay. So when you talk about faults, there are a different kind of faults under the head of the high voltage engineering domain or the electrical power system domain. You will study in detail, but primarily under the head of measurement instrumentation, we would say broadly we will categorize into different category, that is the ground fault and the short circuit. What is the ground fault? So you might have observed that even in your house, you might have observed there is a cable which is going on and through which the current is passing on. But in the outer side, there is a shielding, right? There is a protection cover, protective cover. So that is nothing but it is an insulation cover. So if your insulation gets detached or break down, so it is quite possible that the current which is flowing through the conductor, which is inside the your insulation cable, may come out, okay, and is able to establish contact with the ground or maybe through the earth. That is nothing but it is called the ground fault. Okay, on the other hand, if rather than one piece of conductor, if there are a bunch of conductors are there and maybe two or more than two conductors are there, okay, like for example a strand wire. Okay, so you just google the strand wire, you will get the information. That means each and every conductor has twisted over one another, so it has a some advantage you got, right? So you can avoid the electromagnetic interferences. Okay, so now what will happen in these cases, what you will do, that maybe it is quite possible that the current flowing through one particular conductor would be leaked to the another cable or another conductor or another core of the conductor, or in case of the multi-core cable also, okay, the current is flowing between them. So in that case you can say it is a short circuit. Clear? Now both the faults can be identified in a practical scenario and experimentally also, that what we will supposed to discuss under the head of the Murray loop test and the Worley loop test. We will see both the method one by one. The fundamental or the essence of these kind of measurement, when you talk about the localization of the cable fault or identifying the exact location of the fault as far as the underground cables are concerned, the primary fundamental of these tests are actually based upon the principle of the Wheatstone bridge measurement. Okay, the Wheatstone bridge you use for the measurement of resistance. So the same scheme we are going to use. What we will do, that we are supposed to say, for example, let us discuss first the Murray loop test. In both the case, the arrangement are same, but as far as the tactical management is concerned, for the measurement of the fault in unknown location, that is different. So I will tell you one by one. Murray loop test is limitation of this test is that you have to implement it on ground level. There is no experimentation, you cannot conduct it. Okay. Now you can see over here that like in Wheatstone bridge, there are the four arms. So in this case, what we will do, there is a supply which is grounded and the lower potential is grounded. There are two variable resistance you have taken P and Q, and in place of the rest of the two resistances, you connect the healthy cable and the faulty cable. Okay, so what do you mean by that? So for example, there is a distance between the two diagonal point of the galvanometer. Okay, so there is a healthy cable. So we are assuming that the healthy cable has certain length is fixed, so therefore it has a some fixed amount of resistance. Okay, now if it is a healthy cable, that is known to you. Now what will happen, another resistance, another arm is replaced by the faulty cable. Now remember, faulty cable is already there, the cable which is experiencing a fault. Okay, so one more arm is going to replace by a healthy cable. Okay, which you are now laying for the measurement, for the purpose of identifying the exact location of the fault. So one arm is replaced by the healthy cable for the purpose of localization of the fault, and one arm has the faulty cable which is already there, which is replacing one arm. Now in this particular faulty cable, let us assume there is a point you can see in this here, that where the exact location of the fault is mentioned. Let us assume this fault can be here, can be here, can be here, can be here, at any location of the cable, right? Now if the fault is exactly over here, okay, and let us assume, we have assuming that it is a earth fault, that means it's the ground fault. So that means this insulation wire is damaged, okay, is breakdown, and the current flowing through this particular conductor is leaked and able to establish a ground contact. So it is a earth fault, or what you call the ground fault. Okay, and we wanted to identify the location of this particular fault, right? And let's say this particular point is x. Now from which distance is x? So from the one end of location of the galvanometer, from one arm, this dashed line, this distance is x, because we do not know where the fault is occur. So we are assuming that that distance is x. Fine. Other than this, because this cable is mounted from one end to this end up to this, okay, so this line is basically is representing the faulty cable. So remember, okay, and this line is your healthy cable. Clear? So both are connected through a low resistance connections. Okay, let's the point is that this is the bridge point. Done. This is a bridge point. Now what will happen in this particular scenario? Now this rest of the resistances can be known because this side is healthy. Okay, so let us assume this remaining distance is represented by the resistance R, because if the location is varying, remember the resistance will also vary. Fine. And this unknown part, the resistance is X. Clear? So the same arrangement you can do if you want to identify the fault due to the short circuit fault. Again, it doesn't matter whether the ground fault occur or the short circuit fault occur. Your job is to identify the location of the fault. Remember it. Okay. So again, we have done the same arrangement, but this time we are assuming that there is a short circuit fault because the current is leaking between the two conductor rather than from a conductor to the ground. So therefore, in this case, you might have noted down the two piece of conductor are mentioned. This can be two. This can be more than two also. Okay. Now establish a balancing condition. How will you able to establish the balancing condition? So remember, in rest of the two arm, the variable resistance P and Q are given. So you are going to you require to change the value of P and Q in such a manner that the galvanometer is experiencing the balancing condition. Once you have achieved that, then write down your standard equation. This A is nothing but it is representing this location. You can assume that this location is A. Okay, so another diagram, it has been mentioned over here when we will discuss the Verlet loop test. So remember, this location of the fault is at a region A. So this A is representing is nothing. It is not a numerical value. Remember. Okay. Now here I'll apply the balancing condition. Okay, once you will apply the balancing condition, you can say that x by r is equal to q by p. Okay, x by r, okay, is equal to q by p, or you can say that x by r plus x is equal to q upon p plus q. Clear? So whatever the scenario is, from here, because x is an unknown quantity, so reverse the equation, do the permutation combination, rearrange the equation in form of x, so that you can get the value of x. Rather, I would advise that even keep, okay, modify this equation in such a way that you bring the x in one side and rest of the known quantity in another side, because here the value of the q, p and r are known. So that's how you can calculate the exact location of the distance. And remember, if the fault location is changing, so the resistance from the end point, okay, so either from this point to this healthy part or from this point to faulty part is going to change. So if let's say next time the fault is occurring here in the middle of the conductor, so value will not remain x, it will something else, x dash or x1, x2, and this r will not remain same, it will be r1, r2, some other resistance. So that's how with the Morello test you will be able to identify the location of the fault. Clear? Now if you want to give it more proper nomenclature, so what you can do, because here you can see that the location of x is, let's say in this case we will say that this x is nothing but it's the length of the cable where the fault is occur from this 0 point, okay, or galvanometer end point. So let us say that length is lx, rather than x we are writing lx, okay, and this remaining quantity is q upon q plus p, or you can rearrange this equation. Okay, check this is formation. Okay, it may be, okay, the putting of question mark is over here, that the book which is referred, maybe the calculation could be right or wrong. Okay, so just cross check it, don't cram it blindly. Okay, and the second thing what you can do, that why this 2l is mentioned over here in place of r plus x. Can you answer? So this in place of this r plus x, why 2l is mentioned? Because let's say assume this total length of the cable is L. So that from this point to this point, that means when you will connect the two diagonal point of the galvanometer, let's say this total length is L. So this L is mounted for the faulty cable, and to location the identify the location of this particular faulty cable where the fault is occur, you are going to lay down one more healthy cable throughout the distance. So remember, if this total distance is L, so the total length of the cable is L plus L is 2L. So that's why we have replaced it, and we are replacing this by 2L. Okay. Now you got the point that why I mentioned this x is I encircle, because this should be the q, this should not be p. Okay. So Lx is equal to q upon p plus q into 2L. It will. Okay. That's how to identify the fault location when you talk about the total length of the cable are known. Okay. Next is the Verlet loop test. The beauty of the Verlet loop test is that you don't require to lay down the cable practically throughout the distance. I mean, throughout the distance you have been covered. So the Verlet loop test has later on invented a solution where you are getting a provision of, rather than variable resistance over here, he has considered the fixed resistance, and then here he consider added one more series resistance which is variable in nature, and you see that rest of the arrangement are same. And that's why in this case the moment whether you are going to connect this particular switch with the ground terminal, or whether you are going to connect this terminal with the location of the faulty cable, it is a dual mode switch is given. And remember, one more resistance is here to separate it from the earth fault. Remember, your faulty cable has experiencing a earth fault, so remember you are going to separate it with the resistance R. And here whenever you wanted to measure the ground fault in, or you can say that the short circuit fault in case of the multiple cable are here, with the help of changing the switching position you are able to establish the contact of this particular switch with the ground. Note it down. Okay. So by default it is here. SW is at B. Whenever you wanted to measure the fault location, this switch will be relocated from position B to A. So if you can do this rearrangement rather than this Murray loop test arrangement, what you can do, this you have to implement in ground. Okay, you cannot experimentally find out this value or the location of the fault or the value of this unknown resistance Lx, or the distance resistance is Lx. Unknown resistance is X or distance is Lx. field in the field. It is a very cumbersome task. So Verlet loop test has given a rearrangement that the same set of establishment you can do in the laboratory environment only, and you will be able to find the location of the fault. That is the beauty of the Verlet loop test. Rest, you have to achieve that the same balancing condition. Once the galvanometer has achieved the balancing condition with the help of the variable resistance S, okay, then you write down the equation. So for example, in this case we have write down the equation is that, so that particular location, this particular location is S1. Okay, so S1 is meaning is this, remember, and don't be confused, some value of S. So S is a total resistance, and somewhere we are going to find out, because it is a variable resistance. So right now let us assume the value of that variable resistance is S1. So in this case it is S1 upon S plus R upon Q upon P plus Q, or you can do write down a reverse equation. Okay, that P upon Q is equal to this total distance is actually R plus X. This distance is R plus this distance, faulty distance, is X, and upon the another arm of S bridge is S. So remember, the third arm is this and the fourth arm is this hole, where the two, again the distance of the cable is again the 2L is covered. Okay, so in this case, because you wanted to find out the location of S1, A is nothing but it is a subscript, it is not a magnitude, remember again. So you will be able to find out the location of the S1. Similarly, now let us assume that your switching condition is changed, okay, from to the terminal B of the bridge, and you have achieved the balancing condition again. So your switching condition, by putting at A, you achieve the balancing condition, write down the equation, then change the switching position to B, again achieve the balancing condition, again write down the equation S2. So in this case, that's how you will be able to manage the location of your X. Now remember, the value of equation of 4.28 is different than the 4.27, which shows that experimentally you can validate the location of X. That means the fault location. You don't require to you can say that the find out the I mean to do this arrangement practically, as like in case of the uh, Murray loop test, you can do this experimentation part and validation uh, experimentally in the lab like environment itself. Okay, now let's say that resistance X is with respect to the total length of the cable, or the location of the cable is Lx. Okay, that L is the faulty location, faulty point, and where the total length of the cable is covered under the test is X. Okay, so in this way, uh, how much total distance you have covered? One distance is L, another distance is L, total 2L. So you are going to replace R plus X by the 2L. Over here, Lx is the under the measurement, and it is X plus X upon R plus X. So this Lx upon 2L is replaced with respect to P by Q. Remember, okay. So from here, you know that your Lx you are getting X upon R plus X is into 2L. Okay, so that's how the tricky arrangement you have to do, that where you are going to change in the this to find out to reduce the number of uh, variables or number of elements, resistive elements, and you try to manage or rearrange your equation with the minimum number of variables and try to find out the location of the fault. Okay, so in a nutshell, both the Murray loop test and the Verlet loop test are valid only when the cable cross sections are, remember, is uniform throughout the loop. Okay, that means what? Whatever the specification of your faulty cable is, you need to use the exactly same specification, same size, same diameter, same length of the healthy cable also. Okay, otherwise your results you cannot achieve it. Fine. uh, that is the one of the caution. Correction factor need also to be included, and you also have to count the temperature variation in effect, because remember, if it is a conductor, so it is definitely influenced by the variation in temperature. Okay, so that is one question is given to you in a test to find out the earth fault by the Murray loop test. Okay, the faulty cable has the length of 5.2 kilometer. It is example is given, faulty cable length is 5.2 kilometer. The faulty cable is looped with a sound, that means a healthy cable of the same length 5.2 kilometer, and cross section same cross section. Resistances of the ratio arm is 100 ohm and 41.2 ohm at balancing condition, and now it is no more variable, remember. So calculate the distance of the fault. So I would say that appreciate, you can appreciate that, substitute the value of the equation and try to find out the location. Good example is given. You can take a couple of minutes of time, right, to understand it. X is replaced because remember that the length of the cable is already given. So X is replaced by rho into L by A. So A is in both the sides, that can be cancelled out. Okay, because it is the same cable, same specification, so rho can be also cancelled out. So ultimately Lx is equal to Q upon P plus Q into L. Substitute this value. So the what solution says that the faulty location is exactly 3.03 kilometer. Remember, it is not 0.3. Again, is a correction, 3.03 kilometer. Yeah. So that is all about the measurement of underground fault, localization of the underground cable fault. Okay, and fine. One problem is given for the Worley loop test also. So determine the length of the cable and fault distance from the test. Okay. Again, the magnitudes are given to you. I would advise that in these kind of problem, from the examination point of view, never forget to draw the circuit diagram. Okay, circuit diagram is very important. Draw the circuit diagram, and then you write down your assume your nomenclature. Okay, your symbols, and then accordingly you solve. Not necessary that you will take the same symbol. You see the resistance of the each cable you are getting 3.75 ohm. Okay, length of the each cable is 7.5 kilometers. Substitute the second variable, switching position S1 S2. Substitute these values. So distance of the fault you are getting. Remember, right? The total length of the cable you are getting and the distance of the fault you are getting. So the location is where it is 2.73 upon 0.5. It is 1 by 2. Right? It is 2L. But you are getting 2L. Remember, so it is 1 by 2. Loss of the charge method. So in loss of the charge method, what you do again to find out the high resistance or the earth resistance we use it. So in this kind of demonstration, you can use the loss of charge method for the measurement of the unknown resistance. Okay, in the lab environment itself. Remember. Okay, so how you can apply? You apply the simple mathematics, that the instantaneous value of the voltage. Okay, and you consider a parallel tuning circuit RC, and in the another case what we will do as shown in circuit diagram. So rather than R, okay, it is let's say we replace it with the known resistance R1, and we are going to replace the position of the involving R by including a key or is a electrical switch. So whether you wanted to incorporate the value of R or not, that will be decided by it can be managed with the help of this switching network. You might have discussed, we discussed already in depth these kind of network on the theory of network theory. So if you have interest, you can revert back and go ahead. So what you are getting from this statement, if R is very large, then the time for applicable fall of the voltage is very large, right? If the R is large, so that means the rate of change is very slow. So obviously, um, okay, so because tau is equal to RC, right? So what will happen if R is increasing, so tau is increasing. So if tau is increasing, so rate of change is reducing. If rate of change is reducing, so that means fall is very slow, sluggish. Okay, so you have to take care of the measuring the value of the maximum voltage. B is a capital B is constant, remember, and small b is nothing but it is instantaneous value. You have to also take care about the error or the ratio between the maximum voltage and the instantaneous value of the voltage. Okay, and remember that these methods are primarily is very successful, very useful for the measurement of high resistance and not medium resistance or the low resistance. Okay, it requires, because in this method it required a capacitors, and capacitor cannot be ideal capacitor. If it is not a standard capacitor, commercial capacitor, then you also have to take care about the leakage resistance, because this leakage resistance will also impact over the accuracy of the measurement. So true value of R is not measured as RV, rather than the voltmeter resistance, the leakage resistance of the capacitor will be R. Okay. So that is, so what solution you can do? You can replace this particular solution with the circuit diagram. I would say that try to study this particular method also, measurement of the charge, loss of charge method. As far as the measurement of frequency is concerned, we noted down the Venn bridge is very popular, very standardized bridge. Still, we use it to find out the determine the unknown frequency with the help of the bridge arrangement. Lot of applications: capacitive measurement, harmonic distortion analysis, very popular in the under the power system and in power electronics devices. Notch filters. What is notch filters? Very low bandwidth band stop filter. Okay, if you when you want to reject a particular frequency, then we use the notch filter. So notch filter is nothing but it is a subclass of the band stop filter. Okay, it is also useful in case of the audio frequency and the high frequency oscillations also. Audio and radio frequencies, it is very widely utilized. But remember that Venn bridge is not in your course, so from your examination point of view I'm skipping it, otherwise you again achieve the balancing condition. Okay, separate the real and imaginary terms and you see that the frequency is depending on the values of C1, C2, R1, R2. That means the bridge values only, and that is why in this case, okay, why you have coupled it? Because so that both the variation in occur in the same frequency. Otherwise what happened, this arm will operate at certain frequency and this arm will operate at certain frequency, then your measurement will be inaccurate. Okay, so therefore you establish a coupling. So that means coupling means both are tightly connected with each other. Okay, so once you are varying the value of R1, R2 will also vary. If you are trying to vary the value of R2, R1 will also, that is called the coupling. So, but from your examination point of view, from competitive examination point of view, obviously it is open. And if you can manage to choose that the value of R1 and R2 and C1, C2 are exactly same, so obviously your equation will become much more simpler, which is 1 upon omega RC. Okay, so you see that the R1 and R2 are mechanically coupled. Okay, so that you can satisfy the value of C1 and C2, and when bridge is ultimately is a frequency sensitive. That's why you can measure the unknown frequency. If the supply frequency is known, particularly if it is a purely sinusoidal wave, okay, so balancing may be troublesome. Okay, so since harmonics may disturb, so in the balancing condition, you can use a particular filter also or the null detector also to solve this kind of condition. You remember filter and the null detectors. Yeah, but this measurement of frequency is not in your, I would say, course from your semester examination point of view. You can skip it, but from the competitive examination point of view, you can study it. So that is all about the as far as the measurement of the ACDC bridges, measurement of the earth fault, okay, measurement of the localization of the fault. Uh, as far as the underground cable is concerned, you can use the potentiometer, you can use the ohm meter, you can use at what condition you can use the Wheatstone bridge. Okay, so all these things we have discussed, including the Megger for the measurement of low resistance, medium resistance, high resistance, and the measurement of inductance and capacitance. These things we have discussed under the head of module number 3. In the next lecture, we are going to initiate with the module number 4. Okay, so till then, it is goodbye from my side. If you have any doubt, you can discuss. I'm couple of minutes. I'm here. You can discuss with me.